that it broke into 3, but one of those things just hit it just right.
Yeah, but it's unlikely as it is. I mean, such things happen.
Yeah.
If you look at the surface of the moon and look at all those meteor impacts on there, in a system the size of our solar system, and a target as tiny as our moon, every single one of those dots on the moon represents an extremely unlikely occurrence.
No, Joe.
And yet it did happen eventually.
Listen, I know nobody's told you this before.
Yeah.
But the moon has acne.
Oh, is
that's
that
all
what it
that's
is?
really going on.
Acne, yeah. Oh, damn it. Okay.
It's still
Those
a
are
teenager.
craters.
You know?
I feel so foolish. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well,
But anyway, enough about. But I like the theory, but you know.
Yeah, in practice, I have a really hard time saying that's what's going on. But let's move to the last theory in this, which is that this whole thing was caused by electromagnetic interference. And this one's also kind of tough to follow, and it's all based on high-intensity radiated fields, which is HIRF is what you see the acronym all the time. And
all the time.
If you read this kind of stuff, you see it. You guys have talked about this with, oh God, what's the place that does, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I talking about Skinwalker Ranch or...
No.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but it's the idea that...
Like directed microwaves, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's microwaves, directed energy. So a microwave in your kitchen or office, common area, is really on a small scale directing all kinds of high radiation, or it's all kinds of high energy radiation into one very close area. What this is saying is that military vessels are able to actually shoot beams of that at targets and disrupt them to a degree that they can disable them. That's, yes, we can do it in a microwave, and maybe we can throw high energy or high RF stuff some distance. To hit a plane at 14,000 feet is just pretty far out there, and almost nobody takes this seriously except for the one person who brought it to the NTSB.
What's her name?
I do not remember her name. It's
Scary or something?
Oh, Scary. Yeah.
Scary or Scary?
I don't. Elaine Scary. I like
Scary.
it. Scary.
Scary. Okay.
Scary.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Scary.
it's Elaine Scary. She's the only one who says they can do this.
Yeah.
I know that the military can do stuff like this, but I just don't think it's on that scale. Especially in '96.
Yeah, in '96, I don't know what they had. I mean, they've been working on things like directed energy weapons, like that can basically reproduce an EMP pulse, but directed at like an enemy fighter and fry all of its electronics. All kinds of cool stuff like that. Of course, we've got lasers. They're now getting ready to start downsizing lasers, powerful lasers, and put them on planes and stuff. And so we're getting to that point where we're actually going to have lasers on planes.
Wait.
But again,
does that mean fighter jets are going to be going around going pew 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 for real?
I think it's going to be more for like protecting against incoming rockets and things like that.
Oh.
Yeah, but
will they make
still
the
pretty
noise?
cool?
Yeah, it's still very cool.
Will they install speakers on the plane so they make the noise?
They should.
That would be awesome.
They should, at least for air shows. They should totally install
speakers, but they're connected to a microphone in like the dude's headset. So he's just in there going pew, 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 I don't know. I don't know about this story.
All right, so
we've been doing a lot of these lately.
Let's do a throwback here to something that we don't do very often. Preferred theory.
I don't have one. That's what I was just saying, is I don't have one.
Yeah, my preferred theory is the short in the fuel tank. I think it's the best supported. Yeah, it really is. Because the missile, if the military had done it, our military, there would have been an accounting for it. They wouldn't have gotten away with it. If terrorists had done it, they would have taken credit for it. So it's, really, the short really worked. Although, again, even the NTSB does not say they're 100% sure that that's what caused the explosion.
Yeah, well, and remember, they recover 95% of the airplane, not all of it. Yeah. And people have said, well, you put parts of it in the wrong place, so that might not be right. So it's hard to say, but I'm mostly behind that it was an accident. I will say that I'm not totally opposed to the idea of high explosive kind of shrapnel bomb throwing something, but
that would have left a lot more puncture marks on the plane.
That's the thing,
that's
is that
the
other ones, don't line up with the data for me. So
and then there was one sub theory on that, is that maybe one of those exploding shrapnel air interceptor bombs went off, but it went off
some kind of chaff bomb.
It went off far enough away. And we're talking a regular bomb, just like what we were talking about. But it went off far enough away that only one chunk of it hit the plane, and that happened to punch through the center wing tank and blow the plane up. And that's why you don't see all these puncture marks all over the plane. And the NTSB actually did consider that theory, and if you read their report.
Yeah. They considered it. I was actually kind of surprised at all of the things they include in the report that they considered.
Yeah, and they considered it, well, let's face it, it's rather unlikely. Proximity fuses and those things, maybe a malfunctioning proximity fuse and everything. I don't know. It's just a confluence of things, of very unlikely things. Number one, the terrorist who happens to have one and doesn't feel like taking credit for the whole thing, and this thing just happens to be defective and goes off way too far away from the aircraft it's supposed to be taking down. I mean, it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's hard to buy.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's finish up here. We got a little bit of housekeeping as usual.
Oh boy.
If you have thoughts about this story and you want to reach out to us, you're more than welcome to do so. You can reach out to us by email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. So if you got suggestions for other stories or comments on this one or anything like that, you want to reach out and talk, you can totally do it there. You can reach out to us on social media. So we have the Facebook page and the Facebook group. So join the group and like the page.
Don't forget to answer the questions when you join.
Always answer the questions when you're joining the group.
Color?
But there's lots and lots of good conversations about episodes going on in there. We're also going to be on Reddit, where we have a subreddit, Thinking Sideways, and we're on Twitter, Thinkin' Sideways, and Devin always tweets back at everybody because she's a good tweeter.
Not everybody.
Most everybody.
Most people.
Okay.
Oh, not me.
She never responds to Joe for some reason.
Yeah.
It's like she sees him all the time. You can, of course, get this episode in a myriad of places. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever it is that you stream and or download from. You're currently using that, continue on, and you can add us to your subscription list, and that would be awesome. If you have the ability to leave a comment and a rating in whatever avenue you're using, please do so, because that helps other people find us. And last but not least, if you want to read any of the information or some of the information that we found about this particular story or find other stories that we've covered, go to our website, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On there, you'll find episode links or story links for each episode. You can stream, you can download, you can find the merchandise that's available to purchase, because we do have shirts and stuff like that on the website. So that's all there.
Yeah.
We have a full episode list on the website as well in a separate page, so you can go in there and check that thing out, see if we've done a story before, because it's super convenient that way. So that's all that we've got for this particular episode in this week. So we're really close. I think Christmas just passed.
Oh.
I think this is a Christmas episode.
Uh-oh.
So Merry Christmas if it is, or if you're into Christmas,
or whatever.
Happy Hanukkah or whatever holiday that you prefer to celebrate. Congrats, and it's almost the New Year, so yay, New Year.
New Year and no plane crash.
And I hope you're not traveling with your plane now that we've done this.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, you might want to travel by the ultra-safe high-speed train.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
well, I'm going to pack my chute and get out of here. We will talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Toodaloo.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Steve, as always, joined by my co-hosts,
Joe.
And Devin.
And this week we've got what I would say is a pretty cool story for you.
Well, of course you would. It's your mystery.
Well, you're right. That's why I think it's cool.
And it's unsolved.
Pretty much.
And we're going to solve it.
No. So today's story is about Vikings.
Ooh, Vikings.
What do you guys know about Vikings?
They were big on rape and pillage and stuff like that.
They were really smart. Worshipped a lot of weird pagan gods. didn't actually wear those horned Viking helmets.
Spot on. Good call.
But that's about all I know.
Okay. All right.
Well, they colonized Greenland for a while.
They did, and theoretically they came to the Americas.
Yeah. Yes.
But they were chased away by the natives.
Yeah, I think they probably for us.
Yeah, I in my research I came across, and I cannot, unfortunately, at the moment think of the name that was assigned to the continental states, but it's something along the lines of the same name or similar name they had for Greenland in those areas. They weren't terribly creative with their names, evidently.
We probably called it West Greenland or something like that.
We will not go there.
Yes.
That's not a Norwegian accent. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. The story we're going to talk about today is a Viking sword, specifically a sword known as the Ulfberht.
Okay.
The Ulfberht.
So, okay.
Okay, so the swords that we're talking about, it's not a single sword, it's a style of sword.
Okay.
And they were extremely notable. They were essentially the best swords made in Europe when they were made. And here's what we know about swords. The Ulfberht swords were produced between approximately 800 to 1000 CE. And they had Ulfberht inlaid on the blade just above the crossguard of the sword.
So that was the factory where they were made?
Yeah, the Ulfberht factory.
Yeah.
Here's how the inlay went. It was a cross, VLFBERH cross T. And for anybody that this might be a little confusing, the V is pronounced with a U sound. I believe that's from Latin, if I'm not incorrect, where the V and the U initially were interchangeable sounds.
Yeah, and it's hard to carve curves.
So
there's that.
Yeah.
So are these? Is that an actual Norse word, or is that?
No, it's not, and we're gonna get into some of that as well. But these swords had that inlaid, and the inlay was done in a different metal than the actual blade was made from. What it was is, I've seen accounts where it was either the metal that made the letters was laid on the blade, or that the metal was chiseled out and another piece of metal was put in and then forge welded into place, which the term forge weld means you set the metal on there and then you put it into a hot forge and it melts in, and then you can file it or sand it down. Sand it down's the wrong word, but you file it down so that everything is the same, but that inlay, because it's a different metal, it stands out and you can read it.
Okay.
Joe was kind of pointing out, we don't know exactly what Ulfberht means. There is some research that suggests that it's a combination of words. In Norse, Urf, U-R-F, means wolf, and bear means light, bright, or shining, and that is a word that's from Old High German or Old Saxon language. So it seems that Ulfberht may be a combination of words, but we don't know exactly what it means.
Wasn't there also some speculation that it was the name of like a abbey or something that was in England at the time?
Well, there is speculation that Ulfberht is the name of the guy who made the swords, or maybe the family that made the swords, but we don't know.
Okay.
And then there were many of these swords made, correct?
Yeah,
Thousands of them?
No, not thousands. As of today, 171 swords have been found with the inscription Ulfberht, and they don't all have the exact same inscription, and we'll kind of delve into that a little bit, but only 171 of them have been found, and none of them are in anywhere near good condition. They're all pretty corroded and pretty broke down, which makes them a little harder to figure out exactly what's going on.
Sure.
Maybe this is just like the earliest instance of a serial number, except they hadn't quite gotten the serial number concept down, so they were all the same.
Maybe. We'll go into it. But what's notable about these swords, the Ulfberht, were stronger and more flexible than any other swords that existed at the time in Europe. It bent, as in flexed, not bent and stayed bent, which was unlike most swords, because a lot of swords at that time were prone to either seriously bending, so that there's accounts where in battle a guy would have to step on his sword to straighten it because it took a serious bend, or worse, would shatter. Which is not exactly something you want to have happen in the middle of a battle.
Yeah. And I guess we should, I mean, you know, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but how long was it just like, oh, and then they didn't find this kind of metal for another 100 years? Or was there a great expansive time between when this metal was found and...
There is a lot of detail around it, and we're going to get into that because it's one of the things that really separates these swords from anything else that was in use by the Vikings or anybody else in Europe at the time.
Okay.
But anyway, the flexibility of the sword is probably one of the big things. Is that it could flex and wouldn't break or bend, and for the Viking style of combat, that's really important. We've all seen the movies where it's two guys and they're sparring and they're swinging and they're hitting swords back and forth and they're going one-on-one, exchanging that blow and blocking. That's not how the Vikings fought at all. Vikings fought with a sword or an axe or a spear, but we're just going to focus on the swords, and a wooden shield. And what you did is everybody was just pressed in close, and you are hacking away at the other guy, and he's using his shield to block your sword, and at the same time he's hacking away at you, and you're using your shield to block him. Well, it's a wooden shield, and it's got a metal rim around it, but eventually the rim's going to give out, so now you're hacking into a chunk of wood, which is where the swords are going to get stuck, because you've just gone into, let's say, a half-inch thick piece of wood. It's not going to be easy to pull out, and that's where swords were notorious for bending or breaking, whereas the Ulfberht, because it had an internal flexibility, you could pry on it and wiggle it out, and it held a good edge at the same time, but it would pull free and just not have this horrible, side angle stuck to it. Now you're trying to use a J to fight someone. And that's what made these things so valuable to the Vikings that owned them, is that you knew that your sword wasn't going to give out on you. Sure. You knew that this thing was going to stay straight, it wasn't going to break, and it was going to hold a relatively good sharp edge for the majority of the battle while you were using it.
Absolutely, and then you could go chop up the enemy and then go do some raping and pillaging of his lands, and then,
something like that.
Back in the boat and be on your merry way.
Back in the boat and on the way you go. One of the things to mention about the Ulfberht are a couple of things about their design. The sword itself was about 3 feet long. They were about 2 inches wide at the base. They weighed about 3 pounds, a little under 3 pounds, and they were one of the first swords where the center point of the sword was near the hilt rather than out towards the tip, which made them easier to use and faster to turn. If you think about...
You mean the center of gravity?
The center of gravity, yes, thank you. That's the word that I meant to use. Yeah. They also had a different taper on the tip, which meant that they came to kind of a point quickly, and because of their flexibility and the way they were shaped, a lot of guys wore chain armor at the time, and if you hit him with a relatively rounded tipped sword, you're not going to go through. But these had that sharp edge, and because they held the edge and they could flex, you could actually punch into chain armor, and you weren't likely to snag because the metal wasn't going to catch.
Right.
So again, makes them super deadly and super efficient in what they're meant for.
Which is stabbing.
Stabbing.
Yeah.
Stab.
Yeah. Stick.
Right. I mean, you think about other swords of that time. It's the kind of the Roman Empire type sword, right? That had more of a rounded tip because it was made for chopping at people with the edge instead of point. So, it's an interesting kind of adaptation, I guess.
Yeah, and it gives you more than one way to attack. You can stab or you can swing. So it's versatility.
You can parry or thrust.
Exactly. The technology, and this is the term that I'm going to use, the technology of these swords was something that had not been seen ever before in Europe and would not actually be seen again for about 1,000 years, and that would be at the time of the Industrial Revolution.
Are we talking the metal at this
We're
point?
talking about the quality of the metal. That's exactly
Good
right.
quality steel, yeah.
There's a couple of things here. The mysteries are, who made these swords, why were they, or where were they made, and then why did they stop being made? because it's a very small time frame that they were made.
Yeah, what is that time frame, by the way?
It's
about
between
200 years.
Yeah, about 200 years.
About 200
so 800 to 1000 CE, essentially, is when they
About,
were made.
right?
About.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's accounts that say they were in